Okay, this is everybody's favorite segment. This is Ask the Commish. You can get your questions into Commissioner Jeff Rolleman. Here at the last minute, you can send us an email at rodlangwayfanclub@gmail.com. You can tweet us at rodlangwayfanclub. You could etch out your question in the sand of a desert island and let the search and rescue teams pass it over to us. Any way you want would be fine.
People often ask me, why do you call Jeff the commish anyway? And not only is Jeff the host of this middling podcast, he is also the commissioner of a flailing fantasy hockey league. This is actually, the 20th season that you guys have been doing this?
We've been at it for a while.
Yeah, so Jeff, well, he's not the perfect commissioner, but the man knows hockey, and I think he's a good guy to ask these questions to. So that's why we call it Ask the Commish.
Okay, and what do we have up first?
Well, we actually had quite a few questions about the same topic. Everybody wants to know about the John Tortorella situation, bringing him in to coach the Vegas Knights. They want to hear what you think about it.
Yeah, that was insane. I was shocked, but you know what? I feel like Vegas had to do something, and they always surprise us, so I don't mind this move. If anybody can light a fire, it's John Tortorella.
For sure. I mean, it's very on brand for Vegas. They like to make big, bold, unexpected moves and often throw people under the bus. I think it's a pretty high risk move. We do know Torts can spark a team, but sometimes he can have the opposite effect too. So I am interested to see how this will pan out going into the first round.
It's funny. I see it as a no-risk move. This team wasn't really going anywhere. They needed something, some kind of spark, like you said, to get them going. And I think this is perfect. If it doesn't work out, you don't have to bring him back. This is a short-term attempt at lighting a fire under a team that obviously does have Stanley Cup pedigree. It's not that long ago that they won a cup. So I say, why not? It's also just a really fun storyline heading into the playoffs.
And how about Patrick Waugh being let go by the New York Islanders so late in the season?
Yeah, that one to me reeks of desperation. I think that they were kind of overachieving to begin with. I guess the calculation was that they didn't really want to move forward with Patrick Waugh beyond this season. They saw a guy in Peter DeBoer who they see as a long-term solution, as a better coach. So they went for it, thinking, if we get into the playoffs, great. If not, well, we still have a coach that we're comfortable with heading into next season.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think that the Islanders think they're a better team than they are. I think they're kind of lucky to be in the spot that they're in. They just missed out on the playoffs. They had an okay season, though. I think most of that was due to Ilya Sorokin. And, of course, the emergence of Matthew Schaefer, what a year he's had. I just think letting go of Patrick Waugh so late in the season is kind of a bad look for the franchise.
Yeah, it's not like Patrick Waugh's ever given up on a franchise.
Yeah, and I think in both cases, these coaches just lost the room.
So what do we got next here, John?
Okay, we have a tweet here from Donnie Downer82. And he just asks, it was a pretty crazy NHL season. What do you guys think were the biggest disappointments this year?
Ooh, there are actually a lot of teams that pop into my head. I think I got to start with the Winnipeg Jets.
Fair.
They won the President's Trophy last year, and they missed the playoffs this season. I don't think anybody really saw that coming.
Yeah, I mean, even at one point they were last in the entire NHL. They did bounce back a little bit from that, and they scratched and clawed their way back into almost making it into that last wild card spot. But alas, it was not to be. Big disappointment in Winnipeg.
That almost makes it worse because you don't even get the high draft pick out of it.
Yeah,
so
no
this, I don't know. I feel like something's going to have to change in the offseason. But John and I were talking about this before the show. He doesn't expect any big changes.
Yeah, no, I just kind of think the team doesn't have a lot of elbow room. They don't have too many draft picks. A lot of players are resistant to go to Winnipeg just because of the weather more than anything else.
It's a lovely place, isn't it? Especially during the winter.
Yeah, exactly. Not so much. So I think it's going to be tough for this team to just sort of do a quick retool on the fly. I would have preferred to see a bit of a tank and then maybe a teardown. But I do know I'm in the minority of Winnipeg fans who believe that. So we'll see what happens.
Tanks and teardowns, Jeff, how about the Toronto Maple Leafs? Are we
Yeah,
approaching that territory?
Two of the biggest teams that really disappointed would have to be the Toronto Maple Leafs and the two-time defending champs Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah, big shakeup at the Atlantic Division there. Sort of a changing of the guard this year. What do we think about both of these teams for next season?
Well, we know that general manager Brad Treliving is out, and the Maple Leafs are on a search to find a new GM, and yes, probably a new head coach as well. And I am not exactly sure where this team goes from here.
Well, neither is team president Richard Pelly, who gave a very puzzling press conference. It did not inspire confidence, and it leaves me wondering There's talk of a retool, but maybe a full rebuild might make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, it's hard to know where to begin. Obviously, the loss of Mitch Marner really hurt this team, and they just didn't get the saves this year.
No.
The goaltending did not hold up. Part of that was injuries, part of that was just inconsistent play, and the decor just didn't have it this year.
Mm.
Losing Tanev was a big loss, and let's be honest, I love Riley, but he's lost a step or maybe even two.
Yeah, for sure. He's not really an elite puck moving defenseman anymore. Can't really anchor that power play in a way that some of these other elite defensemen can. Also, Austin Matthews, obviously, we have to talk about this. He had a pretty down year by his standards. And then obviously the injury at the end of the year really hurt the team.
And that's been the story of Austin Matthews' past few seasons, is lingering injuries. And we have to wonder, has he peaked, or can he get back to that top 5 NHL player status? And I'm not actually sure he can do it.
Big question mark there for sure.
And how about the Panthers?
The Florida Panthers, I don't know. My personal opinion about them is they're in a slightly different boat. Obviously, they're missing their best player for the entire season, Alexander Barkov, one of the most important players on any team in the league. I do think that their chances to bounce back next year are much higher.
Yeah, it's almost like a bear that's in hibernation. I think they're going to get out of that cave and be pretty ornery next year. I think they could go right back to contender status if things break the right way for them.
Yeah, I agree with that.
One of the big stories there that I'll be watching over the summer is what happens with Sergei Bobrovsky. He's at the end of that big $10 million a year contract. They do have Tarasov, but I'm not sure if he's ready to take the reins.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Bobrovsky come back for less money, but maybe they bring in another veteran as well to push him. I think one thing we can say as a positive is that a lot of these older guys are going to have a nice full off season to train and get healthy and give it one more big push.
And guys, if we're talking disappointments here, how about the Detroit Red Wings?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually preparing my apology speech because I'd, given them no respect at the start of the year, and I wasn't really willing to apologize after they were first in the division. But in the end, they proved me right. It's another March collapse in Motor City. And I think they're just kind of stuck in that mushy middle now where they have enough talent to be good, but not quite good enough in what is a very strong division.
Is Yzerman on the hot seat?
I think he must be at this point. I mean, this is probably the biggest disappointment. They looked really good all year. They looked poised to make that next step, and then to just fall off in this fashion is very disappointing if you're a Detroit Red Wings fan. How many years is this? They have not made the playoffs now?
Well, Buffalo made it, so their 14-year drought ends. Detroit now, their 10th season in a row without a playoff appearance. Hard to believe.
Oof, yeah, that is rough. So yeah, I do think Stevie Y is going to be facing some heat in the offseason here.
They do have a couple of really nice pieces in Sider and Lucas Raymond.
Yeah, for sure. And they do have some big draft picks coming up in the next couple seasons here. Of course, they do have some good goaltending prospects in Sebastian Cossa and Trey Augustine. But goalies are so hard to predict. We'll see how these guys pan out.
Yeah, they have a nice pool of prospects, but I don't see any franchise-altering superstars. That's kind of the missing piece in Detroit. Their best player, arguably, Dylan Larkin. He's now 30 years old. He's been battling injuries in previous seasons. I think actually one of the reasons they missed the playoffs this year was that he was banged up down the stretch. I just don't see them getting over the hump. And again, what is a very strong division with a lot of good young teams on the rise.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for them. I think maybe if some of these young guys do pan out, they could make the playoffs, maybe make a little bit of noise, but I think it's going to be really tough for them to move into that contender status.
And what about the New Jersey Devils?
Yeah, we were pretty high on them going into the season. So much talent there. But again, the story, at least part of the year, was injuries. That freak accident, Jack Hughes missing a big chunk of the year, really hurt their chances. They did come on a little bit down the stretch, but a lot of unrealized potential in New Jersey.
Yeah, Hughes was unreal after the Olympic break, after he scored the game-winning goal for the Americans there.
Yeah, for sure. There are some rumblings that Nico Hischier is not all that pleased with what's going on there, and he may not be sticking around, which would be devastating for this team's chances.
So Fitzgerald, the general manager, he's out, and I'm guessing Keefe might be the next one?
Yeah, I've never been a massive fan of Sheldon Keefe. Obviously, some challenges that he was unable to overcome in New Jersey. I think maybe a fresh face and voice could be helpful there. But yeah, it's going to come down to the captain. Do they get the extension this summer? Because I don't think they want to start the season with their captain not extended. That would be something that would loom over the team the whole season. The young defensemen, too. You look at a guy like Luke Hughes, underwhelming season. Simone Nemec, former second overall, hasn't really lived up to his promise either. Again, the potential is there. They just have to meet it.
And what about the cellar dwellers, the Vancouver Canucks and the New York Rangers?
Oof, just a couple of tire fires. I'm not shocked by either of these. I think they were even worse than we thought they would be. But I think darker days are still around the corner for both of these franchises.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. The Rangers threw the towel in with that letter to their fans. It's over for them. And Vancouver, I think we thought they'd be a little bit better, but we didn't have super high hopes for them. Obviously, when they traded Quinn Hughes, that was also an indication that they were done with this iteration of their franchise. So we'll see what happens next.
I think it would be a lot of fun if they won that lottery and got Gavin McKenna first overall.
That would be massive. They really need something. Obviously, Elias Pettersson, who's supposed to be the franchise player now that Quinn Hughes is gone, didn't really figure things out this season. He was okay, but man, he is not earning that big contract.
Yeah, and with the New York Rangers, there are some bright spots on this roster. Obviously, Igor Shesterkin, an all-world goaltender. I wonder if he'll stick around. Of course, Adam Fox, also an elite defenseman. And Lafreniere finally emerged. He had a pretty decent season, scored some goals. He's got some physical play. So these are guys that they could maybe build around if they choose to.
I don't know. I just don't like the fact that your core is made up of JT Miller. Mika Zibanejad had a good year statistically, but again, this is a guy who's on the downside of his career. Vincent Trocheck, shocked that he's still on the team. I really thought they were going to cash him in at the deadline. Maybe he moves in the offseason. But something's going to have to change in New York. Traditionally, this is a franchise that likes to chase the big fish in free agency, but there aren't that many out there this year, so I don't see any big changes that get them back to playoff contention next year.
They should get an early draft pick. There will be a lot of talent that's available at that time.
Yeah, we're talking long term now, but I think in the short term, we've got some more pain in New York, and maybe you tear it down and you trade some of those big assets.
Yes, it will be interesting to see how this team chooses to handle these dire straits they're in.
Okay, boys, I think we have time for one final letter.
Yeah, there are a few here, but actually, I think we're going to go for a question that's not even in the mailbag. I'm going outside of the box here.
Okay.
Because this is something that we do every year. We get one last chance to change our Stanley Cup picks. So in the past, we have gotten letters about this. We didn't get one this year, but let's pretend that we did.
Okay. Well, this season I picked the Dallas Stars to win the Stanley Cup, and I'm sticking with them. I'm sticking with Dallas.
Okay. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, I'm going to also be a stick in the mud and stick with my original pick, the Edmonton Oilers. I know that there are a lot of question marks, obviously, with Leon Draisaitl's health. Zach Hyman has missed time down the stretch. But you know what? They're still in a division that is weak. They still have Connor McDavid, and I don't see any perfect team in the NHL. So I'm going to stick with the two-time Cup finalist Edmonton Oilers.
And John, you originally went with the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yes, I did. And while I don't think that's a crazy pick, they made the big coaching change. They're a pretty deep team. I just don't really like them. I'm just not a fan of the team. So
Okay.
I feel like, I can't in good faith pick them. I want to pick a team that I would really like to root for. So I'm going to change it up.
Okay.
I am going to go with the upstart Buffalo Sabres.
Whoa,
Hey,
okay,
all
that's
right.
fun.
Yeah. I really like their decor. I think they're going to be very tough to play against in the playoffs. They maybe don't have some of the offensive pop that some of the other big contending teams do, but I think they're going to make for some interesting series. And they might just surprise some people here. So I'm going Buffalo Sabres.
Wow, we picked them to finish last in the division, and
We
now
did.
John's got them for the Cup.
Yeah.
What a wild year this has been.
Amazing. Well, guys, I think that about wraps it up. I'm so excited for the playoffs.
Yeah, quick turnaround. The playoffs get started Saturday night. I just hope these guys are not out of gas after what has been a very arduous regular season, but I am stoked for some playoff hockey.
Yeah, it's going to be lots of fun. It's the best part of the year. That first round is always so exciting.
Thank you for listening, guys. Enjoy the NHL playoffs, and I hope you had yourselves a time.